Call to order, please. Pledge of allegiance. Please stand and face the flag. Tom, would you lead us?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Pioneer Town, Michelle Myers, absent. Yucca Mesa, Tom Ziegert.
Present.
Landers, Dawn Johnson. Here. Joshua Tree, Mark Lundquist.
Here.
Flamingo Heights is still vacant. Desert Heights, Pat Flanagan. Here. Wonder Valley, Teresa Sites. Here. Morongo Valley, Gail Swearitt, absent. Copper Mountain Mesa, Mary Helen Tuttle. Here.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. Ross, turn your mic on. Can you hear me? Oh, amazing. Okay, approval of agenda. I hear a motion, changes, deletions, discussion?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, approval of July 10th, 2017 minutes.
So moved.
Any discussion? Not? I hear a vote. All those in favor? Okay, so moved. Memorial adjournments, none. Okay, public safety reports. Jeff looks like the only one's here, so you're solo tonight.
It's good when I'm the only one here to jump to the front line. Round off.
Very well.
How about now?
Tap it.
Did it make it worse?
Yeah, you're on.
All right.
Let's get close to it.
Okay. All right, well, it's good to see everybody tonight. From the Sheriff's Department side of things, if you read the papers or follow us on social media, we've been real busy. Lots of burglaries, it's been a busy summer. We've rounded up a lot of them. We've also done a bunch of press releases on that as well. Word no wise, it's not too expensive, but consider having a monitored alarm system in your house.
Tap the switch again. Change.
If I switch it again, it'll switch off.
Okay. Don't touch it.
Don't touch it now.
Touch it again.
How about,
Just get close.
how about now?
Yeah, you gotta get close.
Okay. Let me speak up too?
Yeah.
All right. Monitored alarm systems are a really good investment. The approximate fee a month is about $25 through most of the alarm companies. It's a good investment. Keep all your stuff locked up, your cars. Don't keep your valuables in your cars. We have rounded up a lot of the burglars. We still got a couple of folks that we're looking for that are running around trying to steal like motorcycles. So if you got those around the houses, tell all your friends, keep them locked up. Don't keep them leaning up against the garage or anything. But hopefully the summer's almost coming to an end, and it'll cool off here by next month, and things will start quieting down. So I don't have a whole lot more than that, other than I'm available to answer any questions if y'all have any. Yes, sir.
We still have problems with Morongo Basin about illegal dumping. How are we gonna cope with that?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that we go about that. Sometimes it's through code enforcement. If it's in one of the cities like 29 or Yucca, the code enforcement guy usually comes out. We will come out as well, and we'll actually go through the trash. The problem is we're not trash removal. They don't fit, and all that trash doesn't fit in our cars. So, I mean, we have to call the local dump company to come pick it up, and sometimes code enforcement guys. And we try and do an investigation and do the best we can. But you're right, we have it, and I don't really have like a good out-of-pocket solution. I mean, for prevention.
What
can see them with their license?
Absolutely. Most folks have like a camera on their phone, take pictures too. We love that. Pictures and video. And we will do the investigation. That makes it easy for us.
Is there any single most method that the burglars use to get into a house? Door kicking?
It's kind of all over the place. Some of it's door kicking. We caught one last group who was doing a lot of them in Yucca Valley because they stole the ring.com. It's like a doorbell, but it has video camera and it's web-based. They stole it and then they hooked it up and then videotaped themselves. So, and then it gives us their location as well. So
Yeah, that's on your phone.
I know even we can solve it, right? I know that's what you're thinking. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if you got a number of calls about the music coming from the Institute of Mental Physics this weekend. It was extremely loud. We're almost 7 miles away to hear it.
Yeah, well, this past weekend, I think was the Baki Fest
Yeah.
with the
I think
with the yoga folks. They were playing music loud.
Loud.
we heard something that sounded like extremely powerful sound system, and we could not see anything from our place.
You can always call those in. We
did.
will.
Yeah.
We will, if it's coming from there, we'll tell them to turn it down. We do have a desert base coming up, which is at that mental physics place. It follows the county permit process. It comes to our desk. We do a lot of requirements, but the location itself, it amplifies all over Joshua Tree and Yucca Valley. So we try and, if it's a really big concert, we try and have it by decibels with decibel readers and measure it that way by distance and sound levels. But that's not always, I mean, it doesn't provide peace to the residents even if it's within acceptable by law.
What are the acceptable decibels?
I couldn't tell you right off because it's a big chart and it says at such and such distance it has to be at a certain level.
60 for residential.
There you go. We'll take her word for it.
So for the desert days, like how late are they allowed to play?
I knew I should have read the details of the permit before I came here. So I don't know, usually, sometimes those can go as late as midnight. And some of the crazier ones they've had there in the past have gone past it. They've gone to like 2 in the morning.
And that's that's supposed to be detailed in the permit?
Yes, and we have a copy at the office. So, and if it's a large event, usually we have staff there we force them basically through the permit process to hire us to control their craziness. Yes, ma'am. Question? Were you stretching?
Yeah, no, actually I do. I want to ask about animal cruelty.
Go do it.
Well,
Yes.
so on the weekend, it occurred to me, it happened recently and someone called me and said, what do I do? And I said, well, it's Labor Day weekend. I know animal control isn't out. And under emergencies for animal control, it says to call the sheriffs. Is that the correct thing to do if you see an animal that it needs to be rescued?
Yeah, if it's criminal in nature, we are the people to call. Animal control is only going to take possession of the animal. They're not going to do a prosecutable case to the district attorney or make an arrest. That's not their function.
But animal cruelty is,
It can be
misdemeanor,
a,
misdemeanor.
it can be a felony, depending on the severity.
So do we call the sheriffs directly or,
Absolutely.
okay,
We could, if we have an animal that needs to go into the protection of animal control, we will call them out.
okay.
But, and maybe we'll have better luck than you, because sometimes we'll call them and I'm still waiting for some of the times I've called them. They've never shown up.
Yeah. Actually, this was taken care of.
They're spread really thin.
Yeah. We were feeding and watering the poor animal, and then actually animal control said take the food and water away, because if the sheriffs come out and see food and water with the animal and they don't see it as cruelty, they don't know who brought it there, with the owner or who. And we're the ones who brought it, so.
Yeah, but if you're the ones reporting, I mean, we put things into context,
Oh,
such as
okay.
I provided this
I was
animal
hoping
with
so.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, no, we wouldn't jump to that conclusion.
Yeah, I
As a-
I thought that was a little odd, but at least, I mean, I felt bad.
Right.
The dog, by the way.
No, we will come out and do an investigation of that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? We go to the order? We're good? Any fire questions or CHP questions over the fields?
Yeah.
All right.
I got their sprinkler fixed.
Really?
Yeah, the one you guys were supposed to fix turned out to be CHP.
Oh,
And your guy fixed it for nothing.
see?
Yeah,
We're doing all kinds of cleanup. in
Yeah.
CHP.
you bet. Okay, on to item H, the reason everybody's here. Presentation by Pat Flanagan, Mojave Desert Solar Development, PM10, a problem without a cure. Pat? You're gonna take that with you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Does this work? No. Does this work?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The reason for this presentation tonight is because I live downwind of the valley out here where we have 2 solar power plants. And on occasion, we get extremely high dust events. And there is no way for the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District to measure those events or even know they're going on. And so I started doing investigative reporting on this and to see in what condition we were in, because these are all unhealthy events. And it also makes a difference with the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. It makes a difference with the BLM West Mojave Routes of Travel Plan. Air quality is a CEQA issue, California Environmental Quality issue. It's a health issue. So I started studying it. I gave a presentation. It's about a couple months now at Lucerne Valley because they have a severe problem. And I actually had the opportunity to be listened to by the general manager of the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District and the director of operations, and they paid attention. And so now I'm on their technical advisory committee. But it's not a good thing if you don't know what's going on because you live in it. So I'm going to give you 2 things tonight. None of them are very long. One of them is a PowerPoint. No, excuse me, that's me, the PowerPoint. One of them is a YouTube presentation that was put together by Tony Malone, who is a resident of Lucerne Valley and is retired from the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District. He used to check the monitors that we had out here and no longer have. And so he's very familiar with it. And so if you don't have your own personal familiarity with particulate matter or PM10, this will get you up to speed. Then I will do my PowerPoint presentation, and you should feel free to ask questions. If I somehow go faster or use terms that you don't understand, I'm hoping not to do that, but you know. Anyhow, so, and I have to do it from back here because that's the PowerPoint presentation. It's animated.
At the crossroads of the high desert lies Lucerne Valley, home to over 5,000 people. It is a quaint town with many nice homes. The proud residents of Lucerne Valley are not afraid of solar energy, but we do worry about unnecessary fugitive dust particles affecting our health, especially PM10. So what is PM10? It stands for particulate matter below 10 microns in size, less than 1/7 the width of a human hair. These particles are significant because they can avoid the natural defenses that our human bodies possess. While larger particles are trapped in the mucus lining of our breathing pathways, PM10 particles avoid these traps and can embed deeply in the alveoli of our lungs. Children and seniors have shown the greatest susceptibility to PM10. The United States Environmental Protection Agency has shown that exposure to PM10 increases respiratory problems such as coughing and difficulty breathing. That, in turn, is responsible for decreasing lung function and aggravating asthma and even developing into bronchitis. That's not all. It has also been shown to have adverse effects on the cardiovascular system and can cause premature death in people with heart and lung disease, especially in the elderly. They have even detected these tiny particles in the bloodstream of exposed individuals. This is why the residents of Lucerne Valley, Johnson Valley, and those downwind of us are here today. We appreciate that the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District has for years been diligently making sure the mining operations in Lucerne Valley are good neighbors. They continuously watch over these mines, making sure they don't allow fugitive PM10 to pollute our healthy and beautiful valley. These mines provide us with a wealth of good jobs while at the same time not polluting our valley. Years ago, the MDA-QMD had even installed a PM10 monitor at the old Lucerne Valley Middle School on Highway 18 to protect our children. By the way, that monitor is still in operation and has been replaced by a state-of-the-art BAM, or Beta Attenuation Monitor, monitoring PM10 24/7. In recent years, Lucerne Valley has developed another PM10 threat not associated with mining, but rather with fallow farms and land that has been scraped of its natural vegetation in expectation of a large housing development and golf course. This has posed a huge problem for residents downwind of these areas, including Johnson Valley, Landers, 29 Palms, and Yucca Valley. We have been told that when the wind blows over 20-something miles per hour, that this constitutes an act of God. We strongly disagree. Legally, an act of God is defined as a natural disaster outside of human control. And of course, we don't feel this problem is outside of human control. When undisturbed desert dry lakes can hold their dust down in significant windstorms, we know that disturbed land is not an act of God. And when the California Highway Patrol has to shut down portions of Highway 247 because of whiteout conditions and car accidents, we all know that this problem is out of hand and affecting our health and well-being. In response, the residents of Lucerne Valley are proposing a PM10 monitor similar to the BAM at the old middle school to be placed at the Lucerne Valley High School downwind of these sites. In recent years, the residents of Lucerne Valley have experienced a boom and a potential explosion of solar farms throughout our valley. We have seen how tractors and heavy equipment can disturb the land and add fugitive dust and PM10 to the air we breathe. We have watched as solar developers change their plans and create huge dust clouds and sand dunes that destroy our viewshed and place our most vulnerable at a health risk. By allowing this to continue, we are going to see a cumulative effect on our air quality and our health. I'm sure most of us have seen the size of the Bright Source solar farm at State Line and how huge it is. For comparison, county land use is now processing solar farms in excess of that size in Lucerne Valley alone, with the potential of doubling this in the near future with Southern California Edison's proposed calcite transfer station. This substation is due to be completed by the year 2020, only a couple of years from now. If the county and other governmental agencies allow these solar farms to negatively impact us without concern or benefit to our residents, the residents of Lucerne Valley are proposing a PM10 monitor similar to the beta attenuation monitors at the old middle school to be placed downwind of these sites at the solar developer's cost. Several downwind neighbors have volunteered their property to be used to house this monitor to ensure their own health and well-being. And we propose that the MDA-QMD impose stiff fines on those developers if they exceed the state standards on PM10. Now is the time for us to consider our future and our future health. Thank you.
So tonight I'm going to talk about a sand transport path in the Mojave Desert. And you may never, has anybody heard of sand transport paths? Many of you live on one. It's essentially a linear dune. And you're going to see the geography of it. It is a geologic feature that is the end point for us of the end of the ice ages. And I'm also going to talk about the lack of dust or PM10 monitoring stations, the lack of soil analyses, and the outdated Rule 403.2, which the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District uses to mitigate for plant removal. The lack of monitoring, the lack of soil analysis, and the outdated rule put our communities and the environment at risk. And the United States Geologic Survey has looked at the Mojave Desert, and about 48% of the entire area is less than 5% slope, and 8.3% is less than 1% slope, and that's where we like to put solar power. For the lowest slope category, deposits underlying 58% of the area are either mixed aeolian alluvial origin. Aeolian means windblown, think dunes, and alluvial means that it's broken down from rocks in the past, and thus are susceptible to windblown dust and sand transport, especially after disturbance. This is from my house, which is in Desert Heights, and I'm looking across the fine-grained alluvial deposits on which I live to the 29 Palms Marine Base. And you can see those deposits build up against the side of the Bullion Mountains. Can you see that? Okay, notice the fine-grained deposits form sand ramps. You also can see that on Copper Mountain. You can see it on Sheephole Mountain, all over the place where we have winds coming in from the west and our mountains are facing north and south, and we have areas that provide sand, we get those transports. This is the same location on a different day. Fine-grained aeolian dust, windblown dust, obscures the marine base. Source of the dust is Johnson Valley, OHV area, via the northwest winds. I have actually spent time in which I couldn't see the fence in front of my house, and actually, when the wind stops, for hours afterwards, there is dust suspended in the air. So if you live to the west of that, good for you. The local vegetated area is not the dust producer. How many people have heard that when the wind blows, the desert always blows? You always blows dust? How many people have heard that? Nobody? I think I always read in the newspaper that when the wind blows, the desert blows, so you can't do anything about it. That's not true. The Clark's Pass Sand Transport Path, it actually starts over in Joshua Tree Basin. You see on the left-hand side, that little blue circle, a little bit to the east is where I live. That whole blue path, 134 miles, is a linear dune. So you can drive it on the way to Blythe. You follow Highway 62 to Highway 177 to Interstate 10. This is a map of the sand and dune system that supports the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. And so that sandy color are the sand and dunes, and this is the Clark's Pass Sand Transport Path, only where are we? The green circle is us. This is a map that is taken from a scientific report, Sand Transport Paths in the Mojave Desert, and within that green circle, we now have, as dust sources, 3 solar facilities equaling 350 acres. We have Copper Mountain College with its very large scraped area, Coyote Dry Lake, which has off-road vehicle activity on it. We have dirt roads and wherever vegetation has been removed. The active sand sources are the red circles here. So we have the dry lake that is up in the marine base, and we also have the Dale Dry Lake, the Palin Dry Lake, and one more that I can't read. Ford Dry Lake. Okay. So those are the sand sources. But we also, outside the green circle, dust blows through the pass from Lucerne Valley and Johnson Valley OHV area, which is also an active source. You can also see, looking at that map, that there are, to the north, other active source areas. So basically, the Mojave Desert, on its low elevation, 1% slopes, is movable sand. So that green circle, if you look at it on Google Earth, you can see where the stabilized sand sheets area is. You can see Emerson Dry Lake, which is in the Marine Base. And those are the active sources along with Dale Dry Lake. And except where the vegetation has been removed, the ground is stabilized. These three really out of scale stars represent the solar power plants that to this day continue to release dust. Inside the green circle, we have the Cascade Solar. Who's familiar with Cascade Solar and where it is? Okay. And then you also have the Lear Avenue Solar to the right. They were both built on sand sheets, and that's really visible. Would you say it's visible? Yes. I would too. The county projects, they rely on the Air Quality Management District approved dust plan based on Fugitive Dust Rule 403.2. That dust rule was approved in 1996, and it's basically for urban areas. There is a requirement in that rule that there be 2 years of baseline measurements for PM10 emissions. Today, we get our baseline measurement from Victorville. Victorville is nowhere near the Morongo Basin. This is dust rising off Cascade Solar in the Joshua Basin. This was on March 28, 2016. I have heard it said that that's okay because it'll stabilize and not blow. Well, this went into active duty in April of 2014, so it's still raising dust. What was the site like before it was disturbed? We can tell by looking at the Joshua Tree Solar Project site. Who was involved in at least thinking about that project? Well, you should have been. If you look at that picture, it looks like the ground has freckles. And those freckles are creosote bushes and galleta grass. And that is not a disturbed site. It has a triangular path running through it, which is not all that wide, and the rest of it is stabilized. Looking at it this way, the big green spots are creosote, and the little dots in between are the galleta grass. What stabilizes the site? The big galleta grass and creosote. It's their root systems that do it. When we do our project analysis under the California Environmental Quality Act, they always ask about rare and endangered plants. Neither of these plants are rare or endangered. So that doesn't help us. The value is in their function. It's their root systems. The National Resource Conservation Service looks at plant communities, and the big galleta grass is the dominant species in drought-tolerant grass that occurs on a range of soil types, but is dominant only on sandy soils where soil moisture is most readily available. Big galleta colonizes and stabilizes semi-stabilized aeolian habitats, that's wind-blown habitats, our sand dunes, with their root growth, that's the rhizomes. And dominance by big galleta on these habitats is an indicator of aeolian stability. When you walk and drive down Highway 62, you are looking at the sand dune that's lying flat. You get out and walk on it, it's sandy. You take the vegetation off and it will blow. This is that same day where we had the picture of the Cascade blowing. This is what was happening in Lucerne Valley. And they have a worse problem. They're a terrible problem up there. They have more area to be scraped. I have been commenting on their projects as a member of the Morongo Basin Conservation Association, as well as our projects, since around 2014. Initially, I had to use paper maps that came from the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And in this case, the map is on the right. You can see the dust moving up from the cleared areas. And if you look at the map on the right, it tells you that the soil types are Cajon sand for 0 to 2% slope, Cajon sand for 2 to 9%, and Kimberlina loamy. Does that mean anything to anybody? No. So you go look it up, and I've got the book over here, and all of those types of sand are susceptible to wind-blown dust. That did not show up in any of the evaluating documents. Now, we actually can map some of these. This is an analysis of the area that Ord Mountain Solar is going to be put in, and these are the, all the soils have been mapped. We've analyzed the 77 soil types for those that have a hazard of blowing soil and those that have a hazard of water erosion. We're not at all worried about water erosion, and that happens to be the characteristic that is continually brought up, whereas blowing soil is not. Then, by analyzing those, all of those that have the hazard of blowing soil have been colored red. The project Ord Mountain that we were concerned with is that black dot. Do you see that over there? This is by Highway 247. So after we map that, then we find the Ord Mountain Solar Site. And then we find out where the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District has PM10 monitors, and those are the A's, and none of them are in an area that can measure blowing dust in that area once it's great. And so Tony Malone was suggesting in his YouTube that that's a necessity. This is a look at the site where they're going to put 428 acres of solar panels. The cross-hatching over the different soil types says they all have the hazard of blowing dust. And it's not a good location. Ord Mountain Solar Site, you look at it, they say it's very disturbed. It's not very disturbed. At one time in some areas where it's agriculture, but in this case, what you're looking at in this picture is not. What keeps the soil down on the ground? It's a saltbush scrub plant community because the soils are alkaline. This is an area above the Lucerne Dry Lake, which has salty soils. It is a neither rare nor endangered plant community, but its value is in its function of holding the ground together. United States Geologic Survey did a project in which they looked at the soil surface susceptibility to wind erosion in the Mojave Preserve. Well, come on. What did I do? I moved myself right out of here. Okay. I'm looking at it. Why is that not looking at it? We're not working. It just quit.
The computer or the projector?
No, the computer's working.
Oh, oops.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn it on again. I'm going to turn on the program again.
Let's play that.
Let's see. Yeah, that's a good game. Slideshow.
Slide 21, Beth.
And, well, let's see if we can first do it from current slide. There we go. And then there we go. Okay, So this study looked at the soil surface characteristics that are vulnerable to wind erosion, such as disturbance, particle size, surface roughness, etc. And in this project, in analyzing the Mojave Preserve, they actually included within their framework what was going to be the Soda Mountain Solar Project. That was about 5 to 6 square miles of land that would be scraped for solar panels, and it was right, in fact, it bridged the I-15 freeway, and they did their, and it's on a sand transport path, and they only looked at the PM10 from Victorville. So had they built that plant, it would have been making the I-15 impossible to drive through most of the year. And that's where the Soda Mountain Solar. And they didn't pay attention when I told them. A soil survey done by the county or by the Bureau of Land Management would have alerted for fugitive dust and high winds during construction and the years of operation, and a realistic attempt to account for the amount of water used would also have been possible. Right now, there's no requirement to do soil surveys. So the USGS says that you can do potential crust disturbance. It can be predicted and mapped. We need to understand the process behind the distribution for greater predictive power. And the vulnerability to wind erosion can be predicted and mapped. We need to include repeated disturbance. We're not doing any of that. Vulnerability to wind erosion can be predicted. We need to include repeated disturbance. We are operating in the unknown, but with the acquisition of data, we have the potential to plan where we are going. Currently, the MDPA is the Mojave Desert Planning Area, and it goes all the way to the east of here to the Colorado River. The planning area is in non-attainment for PM10. It lacks monitoring stations to collect ambient fugitive dust, except for in Victorville, which is on concrete. The planning area relies on Victorville for this, and the solar projects are approved and built without adequate dust controls to our and the environment's detriment. Current planning without data. The Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District, Federal PM10 Attainment Plan, and Rule 403.2 Fugitive Dust Control are outdated. The categories and controls reflect construction conditions of the 1990s. Soil units and susceptibility to the hazard of blowing soil are not included in planning area calculations. Soils are generalized to reflect urban area conditions, which we own. The baseline emissions for fugitive dust do not reflect current planning area conditions. Project control plans in coordination with San Bernardino County Planning lack monitoring protocols and enforcement. We need to get the data. We need to, the current level of individual project disturbance is without precedent. There is no historical data to guide monitoring. We need to update the rules and develop monitoring protocols. We need to require developers to complete a soil survey for any county conditional use permit and for air quality management district approved plans. And the county must acquire soil reference files and maps. They don't have them. We must require the location of the SLAM, means state and local area monitoring stations, in communities with large footprint energy installations, and we need to define that. To monitor fugitive dust, this is important for understanding health effects and water use. All data must be publicly available, and we must require installation of meteorological and all air monitoring stations on private lands and federal DFAs when solar energy project applications are accepted. This should be a condition of application. They must remain in place for the life of the project and beyond to assess conditions during construction, operation, decommissioning, and beyond. So now you know everything. So the important thing is to pay attention, because had they built the solar plant on the airport, you would be seeing this dust. You are people who live on the hillside. Lorraine, how often do you see dust rising?
Whatever this big man is.
Yeah, whenever there's a big wind. So if you're not breathing it, if you're living to the west of that, you may not understand this problem. Everybody to the east of it is in trouble. And the major development focus areas for the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan have no air quality monitoring. There's no stations, none. Yes?
Pat, now that you're on the AQ&D advisory board, when can we expect monitoring stations?
Wouldn't that be nice tomorrow? They were invited to this meeting and they're unable to come, but they have said that they're working on meetings with the county because the AQMD is not going to be doing the soil surveys. The county has to demand it of the developer. They have to do it. So we need to make sure that happens. And then they need to upgrade their plans. And I think that Copper Mountain College would be a really good place to put a monitor. There, if you look on the AQMD website, you'll see there's a monitor on the Marine base. That monitor is not used for baseline measurements. It's not the right kind of monitor. It was only put there so that the Marine base would know whether or not they were putting dust towards 29 pumps. So it's a complicated issue.
What does a monitoring station cost?
It depends. It can be very expensive, but they're getting new ones all the time. There's actually, you can wear one. I think I sent you a photograph.
I'm surprised you don't have one up.
I know, well, I couldn't afford it. So they're getting to be more sophisticated with these monitors.
And is there anything the community can do to raise money for a monitoring station? Is that something that they would take as a donation?
I have no idea, but I can ask if I go to see that's the case. Where there's always a really bad problem with monitoring dust is in Imperial Valley. That's got some of the worst air in the country, the highest rates of asthma and that kind of thing. And so they now...
You and I have been talking about this for quite a while, and I was unaware. I quite often brought it back, I called it back, like up 62 to 177 down. So I was more aware of the actual arrangement I have in the past. So all of these sand buildups are coming from Lucerne, traveling down here, taking a left turn and going up.
They actually, they start in Emerson Dry Lake, which is just north of here in the Marine base. And that will get you to where you're looking at Lear Avenue. If I have seen the dust come down and make a left-hand turn and go in front of the Marine base. So when you're looking at Lear, that's where you would see it. Copper Mountain, which has the sand sheets on both sides, that's from Emerson Dry Lake, and from the other, basically Emerson Dry Lake, because this is a geologic thing. And it flows over Copper Mountain and then lands on the other side and actually makes another dune system.
So these are ancient sand.
These are old, yeah, 10,000 years old.
And it's getting worse, but unprovable at this point unless we have monitoring stations.
Exactly.
Okay.
And AQMD also said they're going to be, you can call in if you have a dust event, but you won't get any response back. You know, and until now you may not have even thought about calling in, that you should do that. But they're going to improve that. They are now really aware of the problem. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Majority of the people in San Bernardino County believe in solar energy. But the problem that we have right now is we have the commissioners on the planning commission that are appointed by the board of supervisors, and they're at their will. And we have 3 or 4 of these commissioners that always vote for anything that goes on. They don't really care about the communities that are involved with all the solar energy. And the majority of the people in the Morongo Basin are always worried about the quality of life in their community. So the problem that I have is that you have commissioners that go along just to get along. That's my thing.
And we have one that votes them down. So, and rooftop solar is good, but I think really it's helpful to get all this information in one place instead of just complaining without it. Yes?
If there is a monitor and it's monitored as a lot of dust, then what's to be done with that amount, or that figure?
If that, in the 2 years of baseline monitoring, that would say, for instance, before they ever built any solar here, and we were stabilized, well, except for Copper Mountain College, but had we known, we would have fought the state against the scraping of Copper Mountain College. That would have said, okay, we generally do not, our soil doesn't move. And then that gives us the baseline. Then we need to show that when the ground is scraped, and we can provide data for that, that it will move. And then they need to take that into consideration. And if they can't stop it, right now, all they say, well, when you're building it, you have to water it, you know, all day long, back and forth. When the wind goes above 25 miles an hour, that doesn't work.
You said we have no monitors.
We don't. And so they don't know what goes on. They really don't know. They're learning. So we need that monitoring station so they can begin to do baseline. And that's what we're going to work for. Yes?
Just curiosity question. I'm hearing schools named as possible locations for these monitor stations, and I was wondering, you know, in terms of funding, is there any way that that could possibly tie into educational curriculum, citizen student science projects, and somehow attract some funding because they're stationed at those types of sites?
Oh, that could easily work into that. It's actually citizen science that's working on the monitoring in the Imperial Valley. That's a huge project. And they've got them now, and it's because students get sick. They can't go to school. So yeah, there's absolutely the possibility that citizen science can work on this. Yes?
Why did they take the station away from the 29 Palms area?
That's a really good question. They just did.
Okay.
They just did.
Okay.
And Tony Malone used to read that station, and he has all the data. Yes.
Is there any evidence that you know of that revegetation in the area could make a difference?
You need to be the question is will revegetation of an area make a difference? What stabilizes the soil is the root systems. So that if you can get those root systems back there with the mycorrhizal fungi that's connecting, it's like a warren of roots and fungi underground, then you could be able to stabilize them. They actually it'll grow back. If you look at the airport, you can see where the grasses have grown back. But because they're not rare, they're not endangered, they don't give you beautiful flowers, you forget to think about this. So that's why the value of that community, its function, has got to be brought to the surface. So yes, revegetation, but it has to be thoughtful revegetation. Yes?
Just a question on, you know, as we talk about embracing solar or other types of energy production systems that are renewable, what kind of options come up as you're building defenses to protect land in the area? Is there just as much activity to try and find places where these activities for production could go? To try and not have to worry about the battle here, but to find places where you could put renewable sources to cut down on carbon. It seems like it's a lot of work to move these things where they should be instead of working with science to figure out where they could possibly be.
Rooftops, because...
So, but I'm just thinking on large scale, I don't think that would produce enough to run a factory also. Would it?
You can't believe how much rooftop solar is already being produced in California. It is enormous, and it isn't counted. But this is the thing, and this is the first thing to think about, is in order to do solar efficiently, you need to have the most level land possible. And that's because of our geology, that's where the sand is. So it's a problem. It's an easier place, I believe, in the San Joaquin Valley, but I'm not positive of that, so I'm not going to say that. But the desert, it seems like it should be perfect because of the sun, but it isn't. Yes?
Well, to that point, they've identified like, what, 5 or 6 areas that have been disturbed, but they're wanting to build solar
projects, giant solar projects outside of those areas. So I'm not sure we this, but like they have identified areas that it could go, but they're still deciding to build outside of those areas.
They want to have total freedom to build, the contractors to build wherever they want. And some of the areas that they had identified, such as fallow ag land, is not a good necessarily, it depends on the soils. And all of these soils that blow freely are in the monitoring, and anybody can look at this, and I can send it to you if you want. You will see that these soils, which because they absorb water easily, they make good ag land. So as Tony was saying, now that they have fallow ag land in Lucerne Valley, it's creating a real problem because there's nothing on top of it now. And in fact, I went up there for that meeting, and there was, there's a church that has cleared like 5 acres. You couldn't see. That 5 acres was a big deal. So it's like thinking, all those questions are good, but you have to think them all the way through, and you have to have the data, and we don't. That's the biggest problem, I think, right now. We don't think them through. We say, okay, if there's a transmission line, we're going to put them there. And maybe that's not the best place.
And I think it needs to be stressed that the formula for California to reach their goal on solar production is strictly based on industrial solar. If rooftop were counted, we'd be way over the actual goal. And for some reason that people are confused and the facts aren't in yet on why that isn't so. Some people blame the unions that have influenced politicians to put in industrial solar rather than rooftop and not count industrial solar. So we really don't know. There's never been anybody come to any plausible conclusion on why rooftop isn't counted. But if it was, we wouldn't have industrial solar right now. We'd more than reach our goal.
We already have, actually. The state does not require any more industrial solar to reach the mandate, the federal mandate, or the state mandate. We're beyond, but we're still having to fight these projects. Okay. Any more questions?
Thank you,
Thank
Pat.
you.
Very informative. Okay, moving right along. Reports from members of the MAC. You want to start out, Dawn?
Sure.
Is it working?
Yes.
Yay. Dawn, Landers rep, Dawn Johnson. Landers has been very busy lately. We've been doing a lot of projects and a lot of different things going on. It's been really exciting getting the community involved. The most recent that we had was the Giant Rock cleanup that was scheduled for this past weekend on Saturday. It originally started up with the Landers Association it started up with them setting up a cleanup, but then eventually that story grew, and let's see, I've got it in my notes here. BLM got involved, Mojave Desert Land Trust, and Blight Sites. They all got involved with collaborating and getting together to do a big cleanup. Actually, there was a story on Z1077 about couple of abandoned campsites at Giant Rock. And they had a lot of trash and human hazardous waste. So BLM came together and they started educating the volunteers prior to the cleanup and educating them on proper disposal of things and the trash and everything. And they provided all the equipment necessary to do this cleanup. Also, Burtec donated. They donated. Where's my notes? Oh, the dumpsters, so that the trash can be loaded instead of making numerous trips to the landfill, which was really nice of them to do that. It turned out to be a really big deal, which is really cool. And, because when I first moved here to Landers 4 years ago, you know, and I went out to Giant Rock and saw all the trash, I thought, God, something's got to be done. What can you do? But I'm just like a little grain of sand in the whole big sea, you know? I didn't know what to do. And then now, you know, the community came together and we were able to do something about it. Turned out we had between 63 and 65 volunteers that day to help, which was huge, which was amazing. It was just, that's awesome. I'm really excited about it. Can you tell? I'm smiling. There is still more trash out there to clean up because it's a pretty wide area. They made a big dent, but there's still a lot more. So there is going to probably be scheduled another cleanup in the future. So look for details if you want to get involved in that. Let's see. Landers is having their bazaar on Saturday, October 7th from 9 to 2 at Belfield Hall. Vendors are needed. Tables cost $10 inside and $8 for outdoor space. I have the contact information. Paul Buck, he's to be contacted if you're interested in getting a table or if you need more information. I have his phone number so you can see me after the meeting for that. Let's see. The Morongo Basin Orchid Festival is scheduled for October 7th and 8th at Goobler Orchids. For a schedule of events, you can go to their website, which is www.gooblerorchids.com/orchid festival and get their schedule of events. Landers Association is having a hobo lunch of soup, salad, and bread scheduled for Saturday, October 14th at 2:30 p.m. at Belfield Hall. And then directly following that is going to be their Landers Association meeting that they have every month. And this one's in further out in the future. There will be an arts and crafts fair at Belfield Hall on November 4th, and details will follow. So if you're interested in any of those events, come see me after the meeting. What, for the hobo lunch? Oh, I wasn't told that. Okay, Judy just said that if you're planning on attending the hobo lunch, to bring canned soup. Okay, I wasn't informed of that. And that's all I have.
Don, I understand that some of the cleanup out there, one of the piles was identified and they have a suspect in mind. It's common knowledge, I think it's public knowledge.
Yeah, it's been.
And they expect criminal prosecution?
They do, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Fabulous. Teresa Seitz, Wonder Valley. We had a community meeting last Saturday with 16, is this on? Mm-hmm. Okay, 16 people present. It was our first meeting after a 3-month hiatus. I took the HIV and Hep C test counselor training at Desert AIDS Project in August, and I hope to work with Morongo Basin Healthcare District to do testing in our area. Our community center is currently without a coordinator. The community meetings and food distributions will continue as scheduled, but the center is closed otherwise. The community expressed disappointment that we were not notified about the loss of our employee. The community suggested at the meeting that these MAC meetings, they would really like to see them rotate through the 9 unincorporated communities instead of only being at Joshua Tree. They felt that Joshua Tree issues come up more often because we're here, and that the other 8 communities would all benefit from hosting MAC meetings in their communities, and that the supervisor's office would be better acquainted with all the different areas, and hosting the meetings would attract new people to get involved. We've had a lot of rain, which has been wonderful and exciting, and we had a washout on 62 near Iron Age Road, and that was cleared this afternoon. For more information about what's happening in Wonder Valley, please go to wondervalley.org.
Thank you, Tom.
For Yucca Mesa, we're having our Yucca Mesa Fest Saturday, September 23rd from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We'll have 6 bands, craft beer garden, arts, crafts, food, chili cook-off, and activities for children. We're raising funds to build a community playground. Admission is $5 per person. Children 12 and under are free. If you're a vendor, our booths for crafts is $25, $50 for retail, $15 to run a kids activity, $50 for a snack booth, and $200 for a food booth. Yeah, if it's going to be a lot of fun again, so if you can, you're invited to come.
Scott, we're going to interrupt and we're going to let you speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. Everybody hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
So, how's that? You hear me now?
Stand and hold it. Put it close to you.
There, how's that? Is that better? Yeah, sorry I'm late. Duty called, had a fire I had to go to right before this meeting started. So, luckily, it was nothing that got canceled. So, call responses for the month of August. At Johnson Valley, we had 8 calls. Joshua Tree, we had 122 calls. Landers had 41 calls. Pioneer Town had 4 calls. And Wonder Valley had 23 calls. And Yucca Mesa had 36 calls. I don't know if you guys talked about it before I got here, but today is September 11th. So I just want to remind everybody to remember those that we lost on 9/11, and especially the first responders, firefighters, police, and the military, and everybody that's been affected ever since then. Just may we never forget. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Okay. Oh, yes, sir.
Is the burn ban still in effect?
I'm sorry?
The burn ban, is it still in effect?
Yes. Yeah, it'll probably be in effect through the fall until we get our first good winter rain. Yes.
Did anybody locally go up north to Oregon, Washington?
From county fire, yes. From the Morongo Basin, no. I personally went to the Latuna fire in LA County last week, and then we've had strike teams go up to Northern California, and then we have individual team members on fires in Washington, as well as we had people in Nevada and throughout the state.
Any more questions?
Thanks for coming, Scott. We appreciate taking the time.
Yeah,
Even
thank
after
you.
a call. Thank
Sorry
you.
again, I'm late.
Okay. Oh, me. Okay, Joshua Tree. Well, I've been gone for a little while, but I can give you some pretty good news. As a board for MBTA, Morongo Basin Transit, we've been investigating for about a year a project in cooperation with the National Monument, the Joshua Tree, to run bus service. And we've had to jump through many hoops and many problems, and I'm proud to announce that the board has approved, as of September 7th, an agreement with the federal government. They are going to fund, and we have got notification that the funding is on the way to start the bus service on February 1. So, yeah, and that'll be just about the starting of tourist season. And originally we were going to run 3 buses through the parks at all the different major stops, and now we've increased that to 4 buses circulating within the park, and then 2 buses that will come out, one of the Joshua Tree entrance and one of the 29, to take the people out of the park that want to go back, or take people in to the park that want to visit it. So that's a big win for the park. Hopefully we're going to cut down a lot of the traffic in the local streets on Alta Loma, along the highway, and up Park Boulevard, just by running the individual service. So we think that was a big win for the areas, particularly with Joshua Tree. The other thing is, you probably noticed that the crisis center on the highway is progressing. It almost looks like a complete building now. I've been gone for about a week, and I came back and I couldn't believe the progress they made on it. That is scheduled to be done before December 31st. We're under contract to have that done by the 31st of December, or lose some California funding, so it will be. The construction crew is working on weekends, and they're working 2 shifts on a daily basis. So we're looking for hopefully a grand opening sometime in December for that facility, and I think it's a big win for the county and Joshua Tree. And other than that, I think that's about it. Normal stuff. Second Saturday art crawl downtown. Public Works, I got a message from them today that they're busy out there cleaning up the current storm damage. I guess we had over the weekend. I wasn't here, but it looks like my neighborhood got hit pretty hard. And they're working their way from the worst areas to the least. And so if you're on a road that is maintained by the district in the Joshua Tree area or any area, just hang on, they'll get to you. And that's it for Joshua Tree. Thank you.
Mary Helen.
Copper Mountain Mesa. So we started bingo again last week, and now it's going to be on a 6-month hiatus till it can be reinvented. Yeah, you weren't there, Gail. We missed you. That's okay. That's all right. The center has been painted, and we're reorganizing, and we're doing some new programming. So there's going to be some new stuff going on. We have a website, CMM Community, and I think it's .com. I was just thinking, I don't know if it's .com or .org, but I think it's .com. So we'll be listing some of the new scheduled events we're going to have, and of course we still have breakfast. First Saturday of the month. We had 80 last time, so it's really rolling. Yeah, that's a lot of eggs. Everybody's welcome to come on out. Thanks.
Pat Flanagan from Desert Heights, and as usual, nothing much is happening in Desert Heights. But I will just remind you that there is a handout up here that gives the presentation. It was a report that was published in the Desert Report, and also it's on the Morongo Basin Conservation Association website. You can find that information as well. And please look for the Joshua Tree Community Plan on the web and read it. There's a lot of information on that pieces to get. The community plan itself in draft form is 120 pages, so look for that. And then on October 11th, there's going to be a meeting to discuss it with the community. Did I get everything in there, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. There's copies up there of the latest draft detailed community plans. And this is just a handout, but on the back of it will actually give you the dates of the Joshua Tree and Lucerne Valley planning meeting. The other ones are not done yet. They're scheduled to be released sometime later this fall. So there is a link that you can go on to. Like Pat said, the document's 120 pages long. We don't expect you to download it, but there's a link on each community plan that you can just click on, and it'll get you right straight to that particular community plan for that area. And the second handout is actually the regional meetings that will take place, and it looks like in Joshua Tree, October 11th. They'll be here at the community center from 5 to 8, and it is probably the last planning meeting to fine-tune the community plan for Joshua Tree. So plan on being there. It's an important meeting. Your community, Joshua Tree, is one of the most active communities as far as the community plan goes, so they really need your input. Again, that's October 11th. You'll find the handouts up here on the table. Anything else for that, Pat?
I think that just when I was looking through the website, I didn't immediately see that 120-page community plan. So be sure that besides all the other things that you see there, find that plan.
Could I add something?
Sure.
I just want to mention that Wonder Valley was left out of the community planning process completely. So, and I did call and try to figure out why, and was never actually told why. So.
I don't have a clue, but we'll find out for you. It has never had one. Could be based on industry and population and people per acre, I would imagine, but we'll look at it. Yeah, we'll take it.
When they did this update in 2007, they went around and asked a lot of questions, but there was, I think, only 14 communities that have the community plan. So it doesn't hurt to come to the meeting on the 11th, and it becomes really important to be aware of what the general plan says, because that will apply to your community in the desert area. And that's key, but it does have to do with population.
And that's an excellent point, that, Teresa. I think that, make sure you come to the meeting, because the people from planning will be here to answer the question on criteria to qualify for the community plan. Okay, thank you.
Who's going to be at that meeting?
A lot of people from planning. It's not like the other meeting that you had. From what I understand, it's set up a little bit differently. It's not where you place a sticker on a favorite subject or a subject you like to see. They're actually going to have different stations set up with people answering the questions on different areas of the plan itself, on what you want to see and what other inputs you want to put in there. So it'll be kind of like a information gathering at each booth for different topics. So it'd be kind of interesting, and this is the last one, so it's very important for the community chair and Joshua Tree to come to that, because this is this one, and if you want to go to Lucerne Valley, they'd love to see you up there too. So. Anyway, I think that's it. Okay, let's go on to public comment. First speaker is Steve Bardwell.
Good evening. My name is Steve Bardwell. I live in... There we go.
There we are.
My name is Steve Bardwell. I am a resident of the Pipes Canyon area up in Pioneer Town. And I came here tonight to just let the MAC become aware of a very contentious development that has been submitted to the county right in the Pipes Canyon area, very close to, in fact, nearly contiguous with the new monuments, the Flat Top Mesa. It's right at the base of Flat Top Mesa. The submittal of the proposed submittal that was put into the county is for a 35-site campground. This is within the RC zone, which therefore a campground is subject to a minor use permit, unless, the big qualifier here, unless there is significant public concern and outcry about a development, in which case it would then be kicked up to a conditional use permit. So this has been, the development has been submitted to the county with a rather vague description of exactly what is being intended to be constructed there. The subsequent to the submittal, the owners or the developers of the project have made it known that what they intend to do is to install a series of small, tiny houses, they call them. There's a website, getaway.house, that pretty well describes what they're intending to do. Once the members of the community became aware of what the developer really intends to do in this property, it's been just a torrent of interest and letters back and forth about this development. The planning department, to their credit, has been very receptive to listening to public comments. And they have, as I said, it's now been kicked up to a conditional use permit. In going back and reviewing the submittal, the planning department has acknowledged that they do not have a clear description of what is intended to be done here. This essentially, it sounds very much from what we've been told by the developers, that this is going to serve a lot like a motel. Where people will be able to go in and spend a few days and come back just to spend a few days to recharge from the stress of city life, such as it is. They have a series of these developments that have been completed in the back east in the Boston, New York area, fairly successful, I guess, and now they're looking to develop them out here. The planning department has yet to accept this application, which is a very important measurement here. They are waiting to have a clear description of the project, which is going to be within a letter of intent of what they intend to do. And if they've had quite a few communications back and forth with the developers, and they may indeed be receiving a revised site plan that shows something different. But the big concern with the community up there is that what had been submitted to the county does not comport with what they intend to do, apparently. So we've been very, really asking the county, and they've been good, to let's find out what they're really looking to do. Now, the project being subject to a CUP, it is also going to be subject to the CEQA process. So it's going to have to first do a initial study per CEQA, and then we'll proceed from there to find out just what other hoops they'll be required to jump through. Now, talking about community plans, just very briefly, this...
You're about 2 minutes over your 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me, I didn't see that there. Okay, well, thanks very much for listening, and it's something we should be aware of at this very special area.
Thank you for your comment, we appreciate it. Okay, next speaker, Tina. You can go over 2 minutes if you like, make it fair.
I just gonna have an hour?
No.
No, 3 minutes.
Sorry about that.
Well, one thing I discovered in the last year is that there seems to be, well, there's many different kinds of people in our county. Some of them spend all their time indoors, so they don't notice what's going on. I came here from 9,000 feet in the Colorado Mountains 11 years ago to live outside as much as I could.
Can you speak up?
This isn't working?
Is it good?
Yeah.
You just want me to talk louder?
Yeah.
Okay. I came here 11 years ago from 9,000 feet in the Colorado Mountains because, well, I wanted to be near my daughter, but I also wanted to live outside instead of only having 2 months of summer. I'm a professional artist. That's how I make my living. And after I was there for 10 years, I suddenly got new neighbors who decided they were going to not just have a few chickens for eggs, but raise livestock. So, as well as coming in with motorbikes and shooting guns. Anyway, so let me read. So I finally had to go to court because of the noise. Let me just read some of the statement that I had in court. The violation, the habitual nuisance noise violations consisted of excessive daily animal noise, which began in the summer of 2016. A cacophony from roosters, geese, and other poultry, pigs, goats, and cattle, whose enclosure begins about 400 feet from my property, has seriously impacted my life and my ability to concentrate and produce my work in both my outside and indoor studio spaces. The daily loud crowing of roosters begins well before sunrise, often as early as 3:30 or 4, making sleep difficult or impossible. This crowing is joined at sunrise feeding by honking, shrieking geese and other poultry, squealing, grunting pigs, and bawling cattle, continuing until 7:30 or 8 a.m. So that, in the summer, that's the entire time that it's cool enough to be outside or have your windows open. And it's not that I don't like animal noise. They just were taking away, going for a walk in the morning. Would you go to a poultry farm to go for a quiet walk in the morning? Not me. Anyway, and it would occur again randomly throughout the day, and at sunset feeding time, the clamor would begin again, for 30 or 90 minutes. So the whole evening time when you can be outside when it's quiet, you can't have it. So anyway, it took me over a year to figure out how to address this, and I finally actually had to take him to court. They contested it, but they didn't show up, and they were fined almost $1,000 for being 60 days over their notice of violation, and I could have actually given them 60 citations. So the only reason I'm bringing this up, I know lots of people are keeping animals, and I'm not against animals, but the ordinance says is 84.04.01. To ensure that the keeping, raising, and maintenance of animals do not create an adverse impact on adjacent properties by reason of bright lights, dust, fumes, insect infestations, noise, odor, or visual blight. So I had manure smells coming to my house, I had flies flying in my face, and an incredible amount of noise. So anyway, if anyone wants to know how to deal with that if it ever happens to them. The problem is this residential rural living zoning, it's not zoning. It's not residential zoning. It allows, just as we've discovered, everything from pot farms to commercial solar to camping sites. And I'm hoping that something is being done to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate it. And with that, anything else? We are adjourned. Whoops. Oh, yeah, the supervisors meeting is tomorrow. It starts at 10 o'clock. They go into this closed session at 9, and if they come out on time, it should start about 9 o'clock. The video conferencing channel will be open for all to come and see. Experience the political process. Pardon?
Anything on the agenda we should be concerned about?
I've been out of town. I haven't honestly looked at it. I think that's it for tonight. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute. Tom will be giving the invocation tomorrow at the, at the supervisor meeting. So tune in online and watch Tom.